From PRX and the Big Questions Project, this is Rock That Doesn't Roll. I'm Andrew Gill, a public radio journalist who grew up on Christian rock.
And I'm Leah Payne. I'm author of God Gave Rock and Roll to You, A History of Contemporary Christian Music. And this is a bonus episode. Welcome.
Bonus!
Yay! That's a good sound effect there.
Yeah,
Andrew.
This is, we're just learning how to do bonus episodes. This is a chance for us to peek behind the curtain a little bit and talk with the composer who composed this original score for Rock That Doesn't Roll, the one and only Jim Cooper. Welcome, Jim.
Yay, Jim! Welcome!
And for the record, and as we're recording, let me say again, congratulations on what I thought was just a phenomenal first season. As I've mentioned to both of you, it engendered all manner of crazy and interesting conversations in my orbit, and heard from people I hadn't talked to in years, et cetera, et cetera. So big congrats.
Oh, thank you so much. I mean, I would have considered it, it was always a dream of mine to do a thing where I got to commission a score. So getting to get an original score and to work with you on that was awesome. So I did feel like that was a huge victory and, one of the ways that this succeeded.
Well, I was the proverbial pig in slop through the whole process. Absolutely loved it.
Can I ask, so one of the things that I loved about the score is how earnest it was, and also kind of lighthearted. I'm probably just putting a bunch of emotions on you, maybe that you didn't intend, but just the way it was so pitch perfect. What helped you really get in that zone? Because as soon as we heard it, we were like, oh my gosh, this is it. This is definitely it.
Well, thank you. Yeah, Andrew and I actually talked about that. I mean, in the original ask, he was saying, well, maybe we should try to channel like DeGarmo and Key and some of those other like solidly 80s CCM artists. And that's definitely of my era. I came up in the 80s and early 90s. But, and there's obviously plenty to poke fun at, certainly musically, during that time, especially in the world of CCM. But, we're walking a bit of a tightrope here, as I know I don't have to tell you, because any music connected to religious faith is ipso facto going to be hugely emotionally charged. So while this is a very rich mine to lampoon and poke fun at, I wanted to do so in good fun without being blatantly disrespectful. Even though I don't necessarily identify with this universe anymore and haven't for years, I did want to be respectful to my roots and, respectful to those who still are. So the approach that I took here was, Christian rock, especially is what I kind of grew up with. It was it was almost an almost but not quite kind of proposition, right? It's like when you're listening to secular music, like the Beatles, you're like, oh man, it's the Beatles. It's like some of the greatest music of all time. Then you sort of shift gears over into the Christian universe, and so many of the acts are like, well, there are seeds of this here, but it's just not quite getting there. So it's sort of like there's a meme that floats around that says Christian rock, the turkey bacon of music. The picture of a guy with a keytar.
Yes.
So in all
you kind of squint. If you squint, it looks like rock and roll.
That's yes, very well put. So and also kind of taking a page from what John J. Thompson was talking about in your Bookstore Guys episode. I wanted to kind of do one of those analogy charts and say like, well, if you liked Petra's Beyond Belief in 1990, you'll love this track from the Rock That Doesn't Roll soundtrack.
I love that.
So that's how I could put together all of these different tracks was I was cueing to an existing track from around that time. So late 80s, early 90s in CCM.
So a taste of the CCM's own medicine, basically.
Exactly.
Made the post CCM version of CCM songs.
Right.
I heard, maybe this is just because, having written the book, I've just been immersed in that sonic universe for a while, but I heard a little McGee and Me from I don't know, am I reaching?
In the main
is there
theme, maybe.
Yeah, it really, I was like, oh, I think I'm going to see a cartoon character pop out at any moment.
Well, I love that it took on a sort of cartoonish dimension. That was definitely the intention. However, the guide track for me there was Petra's Beyond Belief. So that was definitely
I can hear that too.
A major youth group jam for me at the time, at age 15 in 1990. I also wanted to kind of expand on the rock that doesn't roll double entendre, and wanted to include an Easter egg for those of us who are, of the body, that was A, instantly recognizable, and B, wouldn't get us into any hot water with copyright infringement. So I hinted at traditional hymn, the solid rock. So it starts with a hint at that hymn, and then there's a direct quote from it later in the theme. But the arrangement is Petra through and through. It's meant to channel like that 80s arena rock band sound with the requisite shit-eating guitar tone and that kind of awful solo. Definitely channeling that record.
Well, yeah, why don't we I want to get more in depth about the other tracks as well, but let's talk about who are you, Jim Cooper, as a person. I remember, I went to Wheaton College after you had graduated, but I do remember the first time I saw you and your band, the Death Holes, performing. It was fall of my freshman year. I was walking home from a Wheaton soccer game at the soccer stadium, and there was like a house called the French House where like guys lived. There was no frats, of course, because this is Wheaton College and those aren't holy. But it was a house that guys lived in that was owned by the college. And it was right between the main campus and the soccer stadium, football stadium area. And there was an outside party and there was a stage, and your band, the Death Holes, was playing, but you were saying you were not the Death Holes. You were saying you were someone else. You were kept apologizing that the Death Holes couldn't make it, but you had been sent in their place or something.
Okay.
But the concert was great. I stuck around. I was like, well, if this is the kind of thing I'm going to see at Wheaton, maybe I can last here, for 4 years. It was a pivotal moment in my freshman year. So, but yeah, why don't you tell us about who you are, where you come from, and your musical journey in CCM?
Sure. Well, I am a graduate of Wheaton College. Almost didn't graduate because I hadn't paid my library fines at the time. But I graduated in 1997, so solidly a 90s Wheaton guy. So that to that end, John J. Thompson and True Tunes figured largely in my kind of musical development. And I guess I'll start, when I was about 15, 15, I grew up in the DC area. So was going to as many of those Dischord record shows as I could go to. And at the time, they would let in kids of any age. So I saw Fugazi in, 1988 as a 13-year-old kid. That was when I decided, I was like, I don't know what they're doing up there, but I want to do that. And then, but, as a church kid, a lot of that post-hardcore punk music, a lot of swear words, a lot of words that my mom and dad might not approved of, a lot of very left-leaning themes, and now, more introspective themes.
I don't know if were you aware at the time that Ian MacKaye, of the lead singer of Fugazi, that he's Episcopalian? or that his family is Episcopalian?
I was today years old when I
okay. I have learned that his parents are on the vestry of, I think, St. Stephen's Episcopal Church.
Yes, and they used to put on shows in the basement of St. Stephen's.
See them there? That's why they had the connect, because his parents were on the vestry, apparently. So
that is crazy.
Not that far away from, Christian rock with the Minor Threat, Fugazi, all
wow. Yeah, that's kind of amazing. In fact, I remember going to a St. Stephen's show, and the cops showed up, because there was like it was like a skinheads versus punk sort of brawl kind of broke out.
Yikes.
So it's kind of crazy, but
did your parents think it was okay because it was a church, or did you?
Well, my mother, yes, this was before I could drive, so my mother had to come and pick us up, and of course she pulls up and there's all these cop cars everywhere. She's like, "What is going on? What is this?" And so then the pressure was definitely ratcheted up, like you are not allowed to go to these shows anymore. And that led to, as an earnest, church kid, kind of, in the midst of developing thinking around faith, thinking around the person of Christ, who he is, who he was. It's drilled into us from an early age. We're in the world, but not of the world. Right. And music was becoming such a big part of my life. I was concerned it was turning into an idol, and specifically all those Dischord bands that I loved so much, and like getting into that punk music. So when I was about 15, and many of us went through this rite of passage, I went through the secular music throwaway. So I threw out all of my, heathen, pagan secular albums, which I rue to this day.
Early Dischord vinyl.
Wait, I want to hear. I want to hear what those albums were.
Yeah. Oh man.
Do you remember?
I had a Nirvana 7-inch record.
Oh gosh.
That would probably be worth a lot of money now if I had hung on to it, among other things. But yeah, a lot of vinyl, and I remember I had to kind of disengage my will and just force myself to toss these records that I love so much. So there I was, tabula rasa, starting from ground zero. It's like, okay, I've got to completely reconstruct my musical experience here, and my listening regimen. So I was like, it's going to be all Christian all the time. And at that time, as you know, there really weren't a whole lot of options outside of the, adult contemporary and or very pop Michael W. Smith kind of options. So True Tunes was sort of in its infancy, but John and the True Tunes mail order catalog were sort of lifesavers for me, which is a bit of a pun because I got really into the lifesavers.
Lifesaver, Michael Knott
and Michael Knott, yeah, which I still think hold up. That and this actually directly impacts the podcast soundtrack, but Sin Disease, the Scattered Few
right.
album, which I hadn't listened to in many, many years, but I got a lot of spin because it was really kind of the closest relative to the kind of music that I was really sinking my teeth into at that time. So
it's funny. We had talked over email about, you sent me this track and you were like, I was really thinking about Sin Disease when I wrote this, and we hadn't done all of our interviews yet. And then that album came up like in at least 3 different interviews. Just unprovoked, it was just, some of it was on the cutting room floor, but like, it came up a lot, actually. It was kind of surprising.
One of the, fake tracks that I did was, because, and I should mention, when Andrew originally commissioned me to do this soundtrack, he commissioned different moods. So he's like, we need kind of a meet cute theme. We need sort of a Dark Night of the Soul theme. So for the Dark Night of the Soul, I went back to Sin Disease, specifically a track called Look Into My Side, which is a great song, and like I said, I hadn't listened to the album in decades, and it holds up. I mean, there's no doubt it occasionally veers into the kind of white guys with dreadlocks territory, but for my money, it's one of the best Christian albums ever made. And also, side note, aside from the excellent songs, which take a lot of interesting twists and turns, it's about the only record with fretless bass on it that I can tolerate. That's just a personal taste thing.
And at Wheaton, you were a bass performance major, right?
I was a composition and conducting major, but string bass was my instrument, still is. Yeah, that's my first love. So anyway, there are echoes of early Cure there, kind of a quiet resignation that I resonated with, certainly as a church kid, struggling to square what I was being taught with my experience of the world, which were in a state of disconnect. A lot of people sort of refer to them as like the Christian bad brains, which is a little inexact, but I can see why they would say that.
Okay, we're going to stop it right there.
Yep.
This is this is the preview of our conversation with Jim Cooper. If you want to hear the full conversation, it is all available on our Patreon, patreon.com.
It's great. You should listen. There's ex-evangelicals. There are like ketchup and mustard. We talk about true tunes.
Smashing TVs.
There are
hi-his.
Yeah, you don't want to miss this conversation.
And
so trust
also,
us.
yeah, we want to hear you. There's some heartfelt moments, stories about opening for Wilco and meeting pastors and how they reacted to this music. So you're going to want to hear it. It's at patreon.com/RTDR. Join us there, and we'd love to hear your thoughts.